Thank you.
Thank you so much for letting us
Thank you
know.
for letting me know. Now we should be good. I appreciate that.
I turned mine on Do Not Disturb. I wonder if I got messages. My bad. Maybe I shouldn't do that. All right.
Okay. Perfect.
Do we have anyone on the list? There's
Yeah.
two. You got it for me, Naz?
Yep.
Thank you. Kicking stuff. All right. Leo Bassett, you want to start?
Good to see everyone.
Good to see you, Leo.
So, first thing, 10% of all those hits on all these views are probably me. I think I've listened to every single thing time after time because there's a lot of information being thrown back and forth on this CAD thing. There's a lot of good information. There's stuff that contradicts some things, and I've absorbed it all. But before that, I wanted to come in here and not come guns blazing, but just tell you some experiences I've had. I own a business. For the last 25 years, I have traveled every square inch of the Bible Belt and the Midwest flyover states, and I've seen so many small towns get destroyed. And I've seen Frisco, Texas. I do a lot of church work, all these satellite campuses, and I've seen cows as far as you see. Come back 10 years, it's houses as far as you can see. Murfreesboro, Tennessee used to be a cute little town. Now it's ruined. And you can see town after town get ruined. So I said to myself, every time I came back here, we have something that no one really understands until they travel and see what's going on in the country. Every time I come back, I can drive down Westerly Road, go a quarter mile past the school, and see the Spates farm, Eric Spates or the Jamesons, the most beautiful farmland you ever see. And it doesn't get old. And people that come and visit me 10 years later say, wow, this place hasn't changed. But this is a curse and a blessing. We are the only town that I've ever seen that has an invisible fence around it. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, you guys don't know how rare this is. I will take you to towns that have been destroyed. Now, some of the towns, like Grapevine, Texas, is a cute little downtown area, but it's got the Dallas area around it. And it's just engulfed with this cute little area. And they have a bed and breakfast and all this. And it can be supported because there's probably 200, 500,000 people there in the surrounding area. And they go there, drink wine, and do all that. But with the changes that have occurred, in the last 20 years with the internet, with traffic issues, with the ferry closing, we have more and more, I want to say, become almost more and more isolated, which is great. If you're a biker, you're a runner, right. You enjoy all this stuff, it's wonderful. But you guys really, this is going to be a really tough solution to solve for Poolesville, because we have this boundary that's like 15 miles that surround us. To the west of us, because of the river, you'll never see people come from Virginia. I haven't been to Virginia since the ferry closed unless I'm forced to go. It's an hour and a half drive, or hour drive on a good
Easily, yeah.
You guys don't go. So we have Frederick to the north, and to the south we have Potomac and Rockville and Gaithersburg. So we have something though that's so special, and I don't have all the answers, and I don't think anyone in this room does. Art can be one portion of what we could do to help the town, but we have a miniature Napa Valley. We have wineries that are packed every weekend. The biking here is a mecca for bike riders. Running here, there was an article a couple of years back, you can do a 10-mile run on gravel here. There's nowhere else you can do this. We have something that nobody else has. And my dad used to tell me, if you want to be successful in life, you need to do something no one wants to do or no one can do. And that's either a trash man or a rocket scientist.
Right.
But the point is, what we have, we need to take advantage of. Bethesda can do things all day long, Rockville, Gaithersburg, Frederick, all of them. We don't need to repeat that. But somehow we need to focus all the energy of what we have. None of them can do what we can do. And I just want to say we all need to take a step back, and we should take another view of what we have, because I don't know if a lot's going to change in the CAD. You can talk to Frank. I built a house here, and it took 3 years to get approval. It's a ton of money. It's not going to build up around us unless they change these zoning laws. And if they don't change them, let's take advantage of what we have. And I don't know if it's promoting, like Frederick has a Tour de Frederick. You could have a tour to Poolesville. You could have a big bike race. People come in for weeks to train. They're here afterwards. They see it. All the bikers I know from down county are like, yeah, I know Poolesville because the biking's great. And they're saying other things. And same with the art. If you want to bring art here, the art's great. Bring it here. But I think it's going to be a multi-faceted approach that we need to take. So that was just my thought on we all need to take a step back and really think it, and not just be, going down one little path, and kind of think of the whole picture. And maybe you guys are already thinking that, but that were my thoughts. So I wanted to just come in with, not guns blazing.
Appreciate that.
But anyway, that's,
Leo, thank you so much for those comments. Like, really, I think I can speak maybe just for myself, but I hope that having gotten to know my other members on this, that we are much more closely aligned with everything you just said and all of your philosophy than maybe has been presented to you or that you have received in all of the consuming of our meetings. But yes,
there's a
thank you.
lot of good stuff you guys say. Like
Yeah.
Steven said, he had a great approach last week or the last meeting when he kind of, this isn't going to bring business, this isn't anything, but it's going to kind of shape the town.
Yeah.
But the way it's presented, there's a knee-jerk reaction when you say, hey, we're going to stop X, Y, Z and all this. I mean, there's probably a way we can work out all our problems and issues, but we need to be more, I think, self-sufficient because we are this little island and people, it's just really, we have this huge border around us and, how do we take advantage of it? But in the same breath, how do we get the town to, be successful? So it's maybe we get in different aspects of each thing we're talking about, unbiased people and get different opinions because everyone in town's going to have a biased opinion, whatever the subject is. Maybe they don't look at it like we do. I don't know. Maybe that works. Maybe it doesn't. So,
Thank you
anyway,
so much.
Those are my thoughts.
Very,
No,
very
thank
good
you.
thoughts. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Very much appreciate your comments. Hey, Jerry. I got you as number 2.
Number one in our hearts, though, Jerry.
Always number 1.
Speak for yourself.
Jerry Klobakowski, 17300 Fletchall Road, Poolesville, Maryland. I agree with Mr. Bassett, and I also have to reflect on my own growing up. My father ran a restaurant in a town that was workers for Mohawk Mills and General Electric came and visited, and they were builders, etc. And the mills, Mohawk Mills, moved everything down south. They're overseas. General Electric in Schenectady, they went away. For a business to succeed, there's 3 things you need to do: quality, value, and service. And it doesn't matter how many people you have. Unless you offer that, you're not going to succeed, whether you're in New York City, Washington, D.C., or Poolesville, Maryland. So I'm not sure what you're really trying to create here. And also reflecting on, as what Mr. Bassett said, we're unique. And I don't understand why we need this district to begin with. But, so anyways, be that as may, glad I'm not on the Planning Commission and having to wrestle with this. And I don't want to repeat a lot of other stuff that I've said already. It's in the record. But I think you need to really understand that we're, like Mr. Bassett said, we're unique. And, I don't know what happened to Velo. There used to be a Velo bicycle club, and they used to have races out here. We had biathlons out here, and they would go over at the high school and everything, and they were there, and everybody was happy. And now all of a sudden, I don't know if we made it more difficult or the county made it more difficult for them to have it out here.
We still had races out here.
Okay.
but maybe not as many.
I don't hear them as much, and I don't see them, because I remember the Velo Club, that front of the Poolesville High School, it was just jam-packed.
They had one this May.
Did they?
And there's a fall one.
Okay.
And they bring up a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so they'll reach out and we'll do, there's a race.
I mean, just the uniqueness of our area, bringing people out like that. But my one question is, I don't understand why the sign ordinance is mixed in with this. Can anybody answer that question? Why? That is a separate part of our code. It has nothing to do with cultural arts. It has to do with signs. And you have my comments already on the sign, what's happening in the sign ordinance with respect to signs and stuff. So I'm not going to repeat that, but why is it put in with the cultural arts district? Can someone tell me that?
So the short answer is it was convenient to have everything, all the changes that we were making to the zoning ordinance in one. That was the intent behind having it all there. The changes to the sign ordinance themselves, most of which come from recent court precedents. So things like political signs and how those are treated by the code are in alignment with recent court precedent. So because we had to make changes anyways to the sign code, putting it all in one ordinance just for the ease of doing it. But, we can certainly separate them and do it.
I would recommend you, then change the
Title
title
yes.
of it to include.
To include that.
Anything
That's-
that is not,
Certainly.
okay. And I don't understand why they would want to allow some of the stuff that I commented on with respect to signs, about how many days before and after and all
So
that
that's
other
one of the things that courts have ruled you can't do as much because you're infringing upon people's right to speak. So for example, for political signs, the idea is that you can't limit when people can express their political preferences. So you could have a political sign all year long because that's protected speech. Similarly, there's a court case that went all the way to the Supreme Court in Arizona about church signs, so that even for events and things like that those could be protected. So a lot of it has to do with issues related to court cases than it does with anything
And I
practical.
wish those judges would come around and take all the signs down that are left up by the candidates who have already lost an election and election's over, and
Right.
let them do it, because it's a lot of trash out there.
Right.
Anyways, okay,
I appreciate that.
that was it.
Jerry, a quick comment on Velo Mello, the biking group.
Yeah.
They actually, I follow them. I'm good friends with one of their people who organizes it. They've become so big that they now have A and B teams, and they ride different routes.
Okay.
And so maybe the reason you're not seeing such
Okay,
an
so they're
influx
alternating.
is because they've sort of divided. So like if you're A team, you're riding this route the weekend, and B team is riding a different route on the weekend.
Okay.
So
Right.
I just wanted to let you know that like they are very much still active. They're very much still coming through Poolesville. There's just a lot of them.
And the other thing to talk about bicycles was with the Department of Natural Resources. That was one of the things that they wanted to promote, along with the breweries and a few other things that they did at Springfest. So there might be more opportunities in the future with that as well.
VDOT actually mentioned Poolesville's, I was at a VDOT meeting today, and they were mentioning the trails and showing like how Poolesville's fully, and they're trying to connect more into the different.
Yeah.
Well, it
Bicycle
seems like State Highway Association is not, administration is really not helping the cyclists, because a lot of the roads on which, like Route 28, the bushes are actually overgrowing into the bike lanes. And I've written our great District 15 saying you need to take care of that, because you can't see the white line, you're obstructing the guardrails, the bikers can't do it. And oh, by the way, why don't you take the trees down before they fall down in the road? But that's another story. So anyways,
Well, thank you so much for your lively discussion, Jerry.
you're welcome.
Is there anyone else who would like to make
Have a
comments?
good evening.
Come on up. How are you tonight, Frank? Can you please state your name for everyone?
I just wanted to address what Mr. Radigan brought up, which is a very good concern. Historically, that's a front foot benefit charge paid for the extension of water and sewer lines. In the past, it used to be done through WSSC or other local jurisdictions. That was always a charge that was part of a taxing fee, but it normally would hit at the beginning of the year, not on a fiscal year. But to your point about your friend not knowing about it or not seeing about it, I just settled on a brand-new house, and that language was not easy to find in that contract. Builder contract is historically much thicker than even my contracts, which are pretty thick. So in a real estate contract, there's an addendum called the REA, Regulations, Easements, and Assessments. And there is a paragraph that would have that number in it. It has to be populated by the real estate agent based on information given to them from the seller. And so I thought I heard you say that gentleman was paying $1,200 a month?
I think that's right.
That's $14,400 a year. It may be more like $1,200 a year due in the beginning of January. And historically, that number is discussed at the time of closing by the settlement attorney to make sure that that person knows that they're going to be billed a certain amount of money from a company. What has happened is that, I guess it was 20-some years ago, legislation was passed statewide that it would be the obligation of the developer to extend the water and sewer lines, and they would have the right to recoup that money through a company set up by them to be managed annually. So, but to get back to your point, Poolesville is unique. There may be, I don't recall at any time that any new builder shows that cost at the time of contract negotiations. In other words, they would show you what your cost is going to be for the purchase of the house and any improvements thereto or thereon. It would show you what your estimated taxes are going to be and what your monthly obligation would be. But I don't recall ever seeing that number broken down to a buyer on a new home contract. It is in the resale contracts because we have an addendum that has to address that, has a paragraph that we have to populate with that information in it. So maybe you all can discuss that among yourselves or with your town attorney somehow to get that out in front of buyers of property into town. That's it.
Thank you for that. All I know is that, he moved in with his family and had been there, and then he got this bill in the mail, and he just thought it was junk or whatever. Like, why would I owe $1,200? You're right, it is per year.
Right.
And I guess it's for the length of the mortgage. Then he got another notice saying, there's a late fee and, you need to pay this, and he looked further into it, and, I'm sure, I don't doubt that it was somewhere in the contract that they signed, but, the huge contract or whatever, but it just seems like that this is something that we could warn people about, or,
Yeah, I think you made a good point, and I've seen this happen before to people, even on resale contracts. It's tough to go through all of those documents and know what you're reading and understanding.
Agreed.
So,
Yep. Thanks for that.
thank you.
Thank you. Frank Jameson, I don't remember your address. Tried to stop you. You kept going.
I'm Frank Jameson, 19939 Fisher Avenue, Poolesville, Maryland. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
I got it. I was writing fast.
Could I ask one question about that? Does that mean that's only the initial owner? So if the house is sold to another person?
No.
Asking the wrong group.
That's
That's not our
that's-
expertise.
Yeah,
I
I
don't.
don't,
we'd have
I
to
don't
look
deal with
into
real
it, but
estate.
but from what Frank was
contracts.
saying, hang on.
You said.
I think it is something
Seems
that
like
you
it
might
would,
have
I
to
mean, they gotta
get
get
if
that
you're within the original 30 years of the building, right?
Companies vary.
Yeah.
They will vary on the amortization. It runs with the land, so the
Yes.
next owner would get it. There are provisions in those documents that would allow it to be prepaid, and there is a calculation that is, can be used to prepay it.
Yeah.
Few people do it, but,
So it runs with the land, so it would be with future owners depending on how it was.
but it does amortize, it will, and it does carry a penalty if you don't pay it. And it is a lien on the real estate.
Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
So, no more comment? Yes? Name? Address? Please? All the things. A little bit slow. I don't write that fast.
Brian with an I, Capaldo, C-A-P as in Peter, A-L-D as in David, O, 19964 Fisher Avenue. Fisher is F-I-S-H,
So you're neighbors with Mr. Jameson.
essentially. I don't have a lot to add about my thoughts about the CAD, other that's already been discussed both by me and my wife. One thing I have been wondering about, and I keep neglecting to ask, and this is probably more of a question for the town lawyer than anybody else, but are there any concerns about the change in the zoning resulting in a changed mistake rule being brought up in a future litigation? That's my only, and again, it's probably a town lawyer question.
I mean, he's reviewed it, you've reviewed the ordinance several times, and that has not been a concern that he's brought up. There's concerns about other things, but not that. So I can certainly ask him directly that question, and we can see what the answer is, but.
Yeah, from my understanding, it's related to the whole thing that happened with the ag reserve, with the downzoning resulting in, like, being able to sue for damages.
Right.
And then if
Right.
if the CAD goes in as it's currently written, it would also constitute downzoning potentially.
It's not, right, and one of the things that he did clarify to me is that it's not down zoning for it to be, special exception is not a separate category of zoning. Like, you're not changing the size of a lot, right? When we talk about down zoning, we often talk about you had half-acre lots, and now you have a third of an acre lot, or things like that, where you're changing how the land is literally used in that way. Whereas, from my understanding, changing the category from permitted to special exception is just changing the process under which you go through with the zoning. It's not changing the zoning category as a category under the code. You see what I'm saying? It's slightly
Right.
different processes.
Right. And
But that is a question that I can ask. But that was not something that was deemed an issue, by the attorney that had to be discussed.
okay.
In
Yeah,
that context. But
that was the only thing that I've sort of run across that I was
Yeah.
like, I wasn't sure if it would apply in this situation and sort of what liability that would open up to the town.
certainly, and that's a valid question and a valid concern. So I appreciate that.
Are we good? Anyone else? All right. I think we're to the actual discussion part, and I'm not sure what the best way to do this is. I do have sort of some open-ended questions that I think might get us started, but do we want Niles to go ahead and give us, did you prepare anything?
No, I didn't really prepare that, but you guys can.
Before we start, I think it's important to note that the Cultural Arts District was probably a poor choice of a name. The goal when we started this, and please step in, my memory's not the best if I'm saying anything that's inaccurate. The goal when we started this was not to try to bring more art in or like create this artist community. The goal was basically to try to protect the downtown area from certain things happening and try to keep continuity in the structures so that if something was built or whatever, it's going to look the same as something else. There's not some super modern thing right next to a super old thing, things like that. And I think there's a big misunderstanding on that. I heard a lot of the comments. People were like, well, what about art this, art that? It's really not so much about art as it is just we had to pick a name for the zoning. Am I right? I mean, does everyone agree with that?
I agree with that intention. However, we felt like we had and this is not to defend it to say that we were right. Okay, this is just contextual. There's an amazing amount of talent that comes out of that Poolesville High School in the humanities program and the arts, especially. There was in particular an example of a flautist, someone that played the flute. That when she graduated, she went to MIT high school. She went to MIT. And at her freshman year, she was invited to play with the Boston Symphony Orchestra because she was such a good player. And she never played in Poolesville. We never, I didn't know anything about it until she was at MIT and there was an article about her. And I know of some growth, and this is not, look, this isn't justification. This is just kind of where, this is how our minds started working. Multiple people that have left the ballet theater here in Poolesville and gone on to have long-term ballet careers. I mean, those people don't typically have long careers, so it's relative, you know, 5 or 7 years out of high school, continuing to do ballet and live in the dance world. And we get to see some of them. They'll come back and do some, but I think there's a lot that we don't see. And so that was kind of one of the things that we had, and we had kind of Riverworks making a foothold on the end of the property, and wasn't to necessarily make Riverworks better, but it was to maybe capitalize on some positive momentum.
Sure.
The Riverworks initiative did open my eyes to there being more arts in the area than I realized. But again, I don't know that we were right with that.
Right.
But I thought it was good context to base our decisions on.
And in fact, the original name was going to be like some
Historic.
sort of historic district.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can't make history, right? And we have empty teeth in that, so you can't make a new historical building in there. So anyway, I think Mr. Bassett hit it. He knows exactly what we're trying to do, and it's something. And I wanted to start this session by saying, I think we need to stop thinking about amendments to what we've done and start thinking about what are we doing, and is what we have in place, some of it good, some of it bad, and come up with still going in the right direction. I still think, and I know Jerry's like, why do we even need a district at all? But I think I think you said it, right? I mean, we need to preserve that area. It's the last chance to have something. Yeah, I mean, if the wrong things go in, then it can. I don't know if it's going to ruin our town. Our town's pretty strong, but it's going to lessen it. It may not be for the betterment of the town, and that's where I want to go with it. And whether it's CAD or anything else, I really don't care. I just want to make sure that we're looking out for the best interests of our residents and our future residents. So anything that we say, and I wish I would have caught this a little bit earlier, we've gotten this sort of documentation that is out to the public about amendments to the CAD ordinance. We're not amending the CAD ordinance. We're discussing what we need to do to accomplish our goal. And I think we need to stay focused on that and on this feedback that we're getting, which is what we were starving for so many months.
Yeah.
And we can point fingers, and a lot of them will probably come back at us about how we can engage, but now we have attention and we have engagement, and I don't want to waste it.
Yeah.
I think we've got a really good opportunity here, so,
Absolutely.
I love this momentum, yes.
yeah.
And I
Thank
just-
you for bringing it up, Martin.
And I used the word amendments just to try to explain the idea that it wasn't, there wasn't anything new. There wasn't a new thing that was being discussed tonight.
Understood. I
It
don't
was
think it was a
about
mistake.
how- yeah.
I just think that read this way, it looks like we're meeting here tonight to amend an ordinance, and we're not.
No.
I just want to make that clear, that we're not here to amend an ordinance.
No, there's no ordinance that was passed.
Right. And that, or a proposal, we're not here to amend a proposed ordinance either. We're here to discuss what is the best interest of our town going forward in that district. And that might end up being very different than what we originally thought.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I know that you guys, we all did some really hard work on it, and I'm proud of what we did. And I'm sorry that it was not right. Obviously, it wasn't right. But I think we can still get there. I don't think that means, and whatever it is. It doesn't have to be in this form or even have the same context, but it could.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Yep.
And I think that goes to kind of the larger question of what we want to do going forward, which is part of it is to look at, is there things that we want to research, differently? Is there ideas that we want to explore? Are there ways that we want to explore them? That's kind of the thought that I had in my mind. And we can sort of work backwards then and decide, what works and what didn't and so on and so forth. So that's just the thought of where we want to start.
What, if we don't know what we want, exactly, like we know what our objective is, but we
Yes.
don't know what we want, then we probably need to start about what are the needs and what's in the best interest. And looking at the things that Mr. Bassett mentioned, the other things that we had on the table before, and revisiting them and maybe those are the right options, and maybe it's art, who knows? But I think we need to go back to that level, because that's going to make our decision-making a lot easier as opposed to trying to find little things. I think we found some things that we definitely want to address.
Yeah.
In any ordinance that we would ever propose, we do not want to put somebody in a position if they wanted to try to be commercial from
Yes.
from residential. Like that makes sense. So I agree with it, pointing out those things, but I think we probably need to go back further.
Yeah, I was just trying to take what was from last time and sort of give us context. But I'm for whatever.
Yep.
I want to hear everything that you guys want us to do, and then we can try to give you the information and get the public's input on that, so that each step of the process is integrated.
I made a mistake of basing a decision on rhetoric. I've heard stories about, and I've seen some of the talent that comes out of Poolesville High School's humanities program. But I don't really have any data. I don't really know.
You're right.
I think that's a pretty good place to start, right? Are they really putting out
Yeah.
artistic talent that I think is there? You know, and is that something that is worth considering, or is it not?
Yeah. And in general, I think one of the larger questions, which Leo brought up as well, is this question of the commercial space in town, right? And how do we want to address preserving that, versus what changes could come and what we need? Some of the references come from reports from 2007 and 2012 that were done, but is that something that we want to try to look at more? Economic data, especially with the ferry, no longer being operating right now, that affects, what type of businesses might want to be here. There's various different things we could do. It just depends on what level we want to start at.
I've heard opening remarks from Martin. Do you want to add anything? And yours were excellent. I would like to actually hear just opening thoughts before we go too far from the other council members, commissioners, I guess.
Yeah. In my view, I think one of the things we need to do is just think about the various elements of what we were aiming to do. And I think those break down to, one of the things is honoring the existing fabric of the area, and that means existing buildings and uses too. That this was intended to create a context in which those make sense. So not to replace them, but to honor them. Another piece, I think, was planning for infrastructure in that area. There's a problem with sewers and drainage, and in order to figure out what capacity we need for that stuff, we needed to figure out how much land is going to be occupied and to plan for to build infrastructure that supports what might be built there in the future. Then the other part is design guidelines and guidance for those building and renovating to create something that works together so that the existing structures have something next to them that fits in. And we tried to create design guidelines that would be flexible and allow for creativity, new materials, but would force builders to take the context into account. So if you've looked at that part of things, that's what those aim to do. And then the last part is really form-based zoning. So the idea that, we were trying to create new building that would be more dense, more addressing the sidewalk, the front areas where pedestrians might be. So there are all of those goals that don't include the actual use part of things. So, and also which includes the cultural arts part, those kinds of uses. My view on those things is that those are as big as the town. So, we're not trying to create an area where they're confined. That's just in that place. So, I think taking the spirit of thinking about different activities in town and not necessarily confining them to this area, but thinking about, we'd like to ensure that there's room as the town grows for certain kinds of uses. And that's one of the challenges that I think we face as we really focus in on what feels like one of the last areas of town where things can get built.
I think, this journey that we've been on with this discussion of how to improve this part of our town has been going on for quite a while, right? We've put a lot of hours into it, and a lot of people have been involved, and, great to have all the public input and everything else. We've been searching for Cultural Arts District was a vehicle, I think, to get us to what we wanted to do. And I don't think I can add too much to what everybody else has said here, because I mostly agree with what everybody said, and they're really good points. But picking up on what Mr. Bassett said as well, maybe we are truly unique, that the vehicles and other things that people use in other cities or towns just don't work for Poolesville, and that we need a unique solution. So I think this is our attempt at a unique solution. Maybe it's not perfect, but I think there's some good things that we've done, to your point, and hopefully we can build on what we've got, because I think that keeping the core of the town, having some preservation, but also looking to the future and making sure that the town continues to exist and grow, because we want that as well. These are all important things. So, thanks.
Okay, so I have a couple of thoughts, and I'll just add here at the end. So the town vision statement, I think, is a really good place for us to start. And I think for three of us here, this was sort of the transition for us into the Cultural Arts District. And the town vision statement is: the town of Poolesville strives to preserve and emphasize our small town charm, natural resources, and history, while continuing to promote sustainability and a strong sense of community for all. Our goal is to provide opportunities for our community members to live healthy and active lifestyles through access to essential services, parks, and recreation, and high-quality education. That is the town's vision statement, directly from the website. And I really, personally, for me in this journey, was the desire to preserve the history, to preserve the culture, and to do so in a way that would promote more community activity and engagement. And so that was sort of like where I personally came to this from. In listening to the feedback that we got last time, there was one statement, and I do not remember who made it. I wish I would have gone back and watched. But it was a aha moment for me, in that someone said, why are we limiting this to the Cultural Arts District? And I thought to myself, how are we limiting this? Like, it was a moment that I sort of recognized that this was seen as a limitation, whereas in my mind, it was a protection. Mm-hmm. And so I really had thought that this was a protection of our essential sort of identity in the downtown area, and clearly that did not convey. And that's, I will own that. I also have thoughts that, as we've gone through this progress as the last 2.5 years, there's been a lot that has been wrapped into this ordinance, and things that are not necessarily related to it, like the definitions, right? Like, we have put a lot of time and effort into a lot of different components, and not all of them necessarily have anything to do with the CAD, or only touch it very peripherally. And I would like to see us be able to unmuddy the waters if we can, and make it less overwhelming, and pull things out of that and pass those sort of like definitions that are completely separate and have no, real impact on what is going to happen and the uses down there, just in order to make it a little bit more digestible and easy for our community. I think we did a disservice by bundling it all together. It's something that they do, over there in DC. You get those bills passed, and then you're like, I didn't realize this was all in it. I think we messed up. I think we should not have bundled everything the way we did. And if we can untangle it, I would like to see that.
That's doing as we were doing, right? I mean,
Yeah, we're doing it. Why don't we just do it all? Yeah, no, and I think that was.
That's not difficult to do. That's very easy to do, so.
Yeah, so I think we should look at where we can pull things out. Or, I know we did a lot of time on the parking and the signs, and those are not necessarily, related to, or,
They don't just apply.
They don't just apply.
apply.
don't just apply to that, so we can pull those out. And I think that would be very helpful. All right. Any comments or thoughts before I start asking questions? Or does someone else want to start the discussion?
Unless you want to go tonight.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, what's our goal tonight?
I think we should make some progress. I think it's reasonable for us to spend, until 8:30 on this. Does anyone have?
Time's not as much of a concern for me as a focused discussion.
Yeah,
What
I have
are we-
some
Okay.
leading questions. So unless Niles has somewhere he wants to focus.
Nope.
Okay. All right. I think Leo brought up, I wrote it down. What did you say? You said something about solution to solve, like that you were, what would be the solution? And I thought, well, what is the problem? Right? And I think that before we can go any farther in this sort of idea that this could be a district, what is the problem, and what are we trying to solve with having a targeted district zoning down there? And I think it deserves discussion, and then we should discuss priorities. Like, what are the priorities there?
We're trying to protect it from things that the residents of our town probably would not want to happen there, whether it's like, poor aesthetics to a building, or signage, or type of business, or anything like that.
So in that, would we prioritize for our next meetings discussing, like low-hanging fruit, what I would consider more low-hanging fruit, like, signs and making sure that that sort of fits, and then we can move that on? And maybe parking, or do we want to dive into sort of the ideas about actual land use? Again, that's a much deeper discussion. I think that's going to take some time.
I think, land use is probably driven by purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
and
probably need-
yeah, sorry. And it seems like the land use is the hardest thing to tackle, because in the end, we need people who want to use the land, and we can't kind of control who comes to use it. So it's kind of where we can try to create limits on use, but we can't really create proactive uses.
It's like a leash, you can't give them more
Yeah,
leash.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're a passive body in that sense, in that we're not developing things. We're not Kentlands, and we don't own the land, and are like playing with the formula to put retail here and housing here
Right.
and stuff. We can create a screen through which those who build operate, right? So that's a little bit of the trick with the land use part of things. The form-based part, everything that I've read from old plans talks about the texture of the area as a walkable town center kind of thing. And that's where the form-based part comes into play without what's actually there. That's about density, how, if buildings are close to the sidewalk, far back from the sidewalk, height, all of those kinds of things, in which then you put a use into that form. That part seems like the less controversial with guidance that it is done in ways that are harmonious with what exists there now, which is, seems like one of our bedrock aims.
I almost think too, that you kind of have to go through everything with and apply that vision statement that was read out to say, does this fit with the vision statement? And if it doesn't, set it aside. It can be tackled at a different way, and also make sure that people know that that's the reason that it's there is because it fits with the vision, right? And then, so if it's like the litmus test of why are we doing this? Well, it's because it fits with this vision. So I think that going through and looking at all the different pieces will make sense. And there's also, joking about ominous bills, but trying to match historical on top of, it's a hard match to make, right? Because you want to preserve historical in the same zone area that you're trying to, encourage development. That's hard, right? But we have to do something to.
Right, and that's where the design guidelines come in. If you haven't seen the design guidelines, the way that they work is just to ask someone who is renovating existing property or building new property to explain how it fits in with the texture and the appearance of the surrounding structures. It doesn't dictate that it must be built out of this and it must have these kind of windows or anything like that, but it makes you explain how it fits and how it's harmonious as a way of inspiring that without being, without dictating that everything has to look like, someone's modern idea of 18th or 19th century architecture.
So am I wrong to say that I hear that this needs to have an economic benefit, which in general means that the development should be commercially oriented or commercially preferred? And that brings us to the question of how do we balance commercial and residential? And what does residential look like? Is it even permissible, not if you already have a house there and you live there? This does not apply. I want to make that clear. But how does new residential look, or does that even exist in this zone? And how does commercial look? Like, what is the balance, or is there no balance? Is there, is this a one-way gated valve? I think this topic is maybe the hardest, this residential commercial topic, and maybe we need more time, but I do think that should be a high priority in our discussions. Thoughts?
And commercial is you're potentially talking about ways to attract and incentivize commercial. So yeah, that's probably a bigger bite, but worth the discussion for sure, I think. Go ahead. No.
I was just going to, the trick with, there's the market kind of works to, if there's a market for more commercial, then, then it is, people are inspired to build it, and without, and the commercial is related to the presence of a larger market. So we don't have a lot of power to say, let's have X amount of commercial built, because it just doesn't we are not composing a community from scratch where we can take a formula and attract businesses here in order to serve X number of residents. You know, there's a relationship between building more residential and then having more customers for retail. So it's, you know, it's hard for us, I think, to do a formula for.
And that's more where there's research we can do, is to kind of build upon previous studies or something like that. Or try to look at things.
Thanks, Zach.
I do think that the commercial density aspect goes hand in hand with the walkability. I will tell you that during, the holiday thing that happens on the Commons, there are a lot of things happening here, but there are also some happening down at Town Center, and people won't walk 2 blocks. Like, they just won't. And so if you're going to have a viable, walkable commercial area that's going to bring people in for economic development, then you can't have, one commercial building, or one commercial use, a bunch of space, it doesn't work in practice. And so I think that has, in my mind, sort of why it was such a tight district that we were sort of hoping to infill and concentrate, because that really addresses the walkability. Anyone want to talk about the name?
No. No, I say no because talking about the name means that we're looking to create some sort of ordinance. I don't know that we're there yet.
I think in my head, it sort of gives direction, and I'm not sure that we have a full idea of the direction.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that too. I think you asked some good questions, and that we don't have the answers to. I don't know. I mean, I think we all agree that we would want to do anything we did. We want to have a economic benefit. We certainly don't want to have a negative impact on the economy, local economy. And how does residential fit into that? That's probably the crux of a lot of the issues we're facing, and the fact that we can only restrict, we can't encourage. We don't have that. Is that what we look? Are there ways where we can actually encourage?
That's the other thing that I think we want to look at is
Stimulate even.
Is looking at incentives and things like that is another part of this, which is sort of less land use and more economic. But there's things like the study that MML has sort of put forward to try to get municipal revenue to include things like beverage and food taxes and things like that, and how using revenue like that or incentives around that could encourage certain types of development and things like that. So there might be ways we can look at that the town has not traditionally done, because there might be new avenues to explore. I'm not saying that there is, I'm just saying that that's the other side of it. Like, generally what we've looked at is sort of the normal land use tools that the town has traditionally used, versus looking at other ways of doing it, which might be different, to encourage either types of development or types of style or things like that.
I know we're limited, but it sounded like study was suggesting we tax existing businesses to promote new business.
Well, part of it is not so much taxing more, but rather us getting a cut of what the state already gets.
So taking
Reallocation.
Reallocating state funds to local governments.
state has a beverage tax.
Correct.
And we're going to take that money from the state.
Yeah, it's the same way we do the income tax. So the town gets a piece of the income tax. It's not an additional tax.
Now you're talking my language.
See, that's the intent behind it, is more to redirect
Thank you for that clarification.
state funds. Yeah. Mhm.
How does that work?
So generally what happens, and this is actually how the property taxes work as well. Generally what happens is the state collects all of the money, and then roughly every quarter, sometimes we get it more often than that, the comptroller's office cuts every municipality a check for their piece of the taxes. And it's all a formula that's based on population and tax revenue and things like that. And then we receive it. So like for the property tax, we receive that from the county. For the income tax, we receive it from the state. So it's just our cut of their amount. The difference is for the property tax is the rate that we set that rate that the county then takes and then gives back to us. So we never do any of the actual tax collecting from a practical standpoint.
And the sales tax part, is that an existing
Yeah, that's an
mechanism?
so there's an existing mechanism. So there's both the state does really, and the county does this a little bit too, but there's a food and beverage tax, there's a sales tax. There's also a hotel tax, but that generally goes towards, like, Visit Montgomery. Part of their funding is directly tied to the hotel tax. So they get a chunk when they do that. So this is a common way of reallocating sort of revenue. So that could be, so there are ways in which, depending on how the process of the study goes about how we get that money, there might be ways of incentivizing businesses using that.
Can I just say, this is going to be a very tough nut to crack, because at the end of the day, we're in Montgomery County, and there are probably easier, it's a difficult jurisdiction to work. You know, we've heard testimony that it's permitting is hard, the time it takes is hard. So, you know, our town has very little to do with that, and that's going to be hard for us to be able to overcome. So I just want to kind of make sure we understand that's, and folks are listening to understand that's, there's only so much we can do, I guess is what I want to say.
Any other comments?
I will say that I don't know that we need to think about names for this at this point, but I think something more generic would be appropriate, like, you know, downtown overlay zone or something like that. I mean, like, I just did some looking around, and like that's very common to, like, you know, call something an overlay zone.
Yep.
We already have the village overlay zone, so
Yep.
we can't call it that, but, you know, that kind of a thing, so that people don't get hung up on. And really, like, this is not, in my mind, the focus of this is not about art. You know, it's like, that's like kind of like a byproduct, or like, you know, part of it. So like, why label it? I mean, it's not really about history, it's not really about art, it's just about protecting, like, you know, part of our town that, like, you know, we want to see look a certain way. You know, so why, it just seems like a generic title would be better for it.
I agree. I think some of this proposed should be generic. Anything that's proposed should be generic in its title.
Yeah.
More generic. Well, and Lexi's going to say, but, you know,
I'm trying to think of how many different aspects are to this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing is that there is a general feeling on this body that we need to very much go through and look at each individual section, while also considering the whole, and sort of go back. Now, it's kind of nice. When we started this process, we had no idea where it was going. We sort of like took each individual part, and it like grew.
Right.
It did this very organic growth, and at the end it wasn't quite right. But now we have so much feedback and so much interest that I think that we could go back and look at an individual piece, like go back and look at signage, or go back and look at the residential piece, and sort of, given the feedback, rework those, make another iteration, make it better, make it what Poolesville wants, and in any opportunity, like with definitions,
Yeah.
we
Well,
could
that
send
part
that
is,
on up the line.
yeah, I mean, I think that the separating the two things is pretty easy. The second half, basically, of the ordinance is all technical things anyways. You know, starting, use chart is its own different thing, but starting with the definitions and the signs, all of that is easily removed and just made separate. And
Like Stephen was saying, the form-based guideline.
yes.
I mean,
Oh, yeah, but that's mainly in the design guidelines. It's only referenced in the ordinance. It's not text in the ordinance. But either way, it doesn't matter. We have that we have that document to use as a basis for what we talk about, and then we just reference it.
I think it could be separate from any ordinance.
Oh, only because we'd have to, only because the way the guidelines are referenced is even the current ones, the current commercial guidelines, are referenced in the code by name. So that then when people are developing them, they know that these are what they're supposed to follow. Because what happens when developers go through is they start with the code and they say, this is what the code says. These are all the things that we have to check. And then from there, they pull everything else out. But it's not that difficult to say, we can rename that document and say, here's the guidelines for form-based zoning, and have them. It's just, it's a line in an ordinance. It doesn't have to be a whole section of the ordinance. It's just a way of giving it weight so that when they look at it, they know what they're looking at.
Niles, can you circulate something? I don't know how this would even be done, but like asking residents to comment about like what they would like to see done
We could.
in our downtown, like to protect it, like what suggestions they have.
Oh, absolutely. I think.
And then maybe a good way to start is for like everyone in this body. We've already done this, and to some extent it's redundant. But maybe now that we've heard feedback and we've discussed it, maybe not. Maybe for the next meeting, if we all come up with the things that we want to see, like what goals do we have for this, whatever you want to call it, zoning, whatever. Like what do we hope to achieve? Everybody send it, and like we discuss it and take residents' input and like sort of like.
It wouldn't be hard. I mean, the easiest thing, I figured either way, my thought was whatever you guys decided to do today, we would invite people to come back, whether it's the next meeting or 2 meetings. Obviously, we're getting into July and August.
But let's not, people are so busy in this town,
Yes.
like why not give them somewhere they can go do it online?
Exactly. Oh, no, we can do that too. We can do a polls, we can make a form where
Yeah.
everybody just writes in their thoughts. We can do all kinds of things. The main thing is just giving people opportunities. But that's not difficult. I mean, it might be educational to think about what questions we want people to answer. But even if it's just open-ended, how would you best?
What
would you want to see?
Like, how would you like to see
downtown
it
to be
protected, or should it be protected?
Yeah, we could just do that question and just get people's feedback, and then give people the opportunity to.
Because I feel like we heard a lot of good feedback from people that live in that area.
Yeah.
But like not a lot from the rest of the town.
Mhm.
So I'd be curious to hear
Yeah,
what people's
I mean,
thoughts and.
it wouldn't be difficult. At the end, depending on how many we get back, it might take some time to compile it.
Yeah.
But that's just time.
Well,
There's nothing else.
Better to take our time and get it right,
Absolutely.
It would be interesting to know also what uses people would like to see and which uses they would not like to see in a city, like town center sort of area.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, clearly we don't want a Buc-ee's
Yeah,
four-way.
but there's various ways that gets into. Yeah, we can see if there's or. What variety of uses you want or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. That would
Maybe a
very much
data
help
center.
with that land use chart. Like, that could help us sort of like
Yeah.
determine what is special exception, what is just, permitted. That would be great to have that feedback, because I think we need to look at that chart again closely.
And this was, this whole discussion was built on the back of the comprehensive plan. And presumably there was some similar type of feedback.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We did an event out there. We did surveys. Like we
Yeah.
can do the same.
Yeah. So maybe
Mostly the same.
that could be
thing.
built on, I'd imagine, too. I don't know how old that is at this point, but.
But we used that when we talked about these things. So yeah.
The event out there was good, but like it still was
So,
very
yeah.
limited. You weren't
Yes.
here then, but it was very limited in who all attended. I mean, it was
Right.
like, just anyone that happened to be there, whatever. But like,
Yeah. But they did it. I believe they did an online survey because that's where we got.
they
the
probably
data from.
did, yeah.
So we can do that again. We can do
Yes.
similar
Yeah.
things, more targeted. We can give open-ended forms and just
Yep.
say, give us your thoughts on these things. Yeah, that's not difficult. It's just the main thing is it's taking time to
Yep.
compile the results, but that's just time. It's not difficult.
Another thing that I'm just thinking about what you were saying, Brian, about the flute player and other kinds of being interested and excited about art and cultural tradition kinds of things and finding some outlet there. And then thinking also of the bike race. And one thing that we might think about doing is initiating what would be kind of an asset inventory. So one way that communities think about it is a cultural asset inventory. And what you do is you document various events, various cultural traditions, various other things in the town as a way of both saying, look, all this great stuff's here, but also as a way of saying, these are things we want to hold on to and encourage for us to be aware of, and for the rest of the town as it acts to be aware of. So it's a way of taking the cultural arts idea, but really saying this is something that exists throughout the town, can take place on the commons, can take place in somebody's house where they might, we don't know what special skills people have that would be great to know about.
Yep.
And be able to celebrate on Poolesville Day or something like that. I've envisioned for Poolesville Day for a while having something called narrative stage, which is basically you pull different people from town. They might be longtime residents who have long history here, talking about a certain topic and talking about their what they've seen change in the town over time, or talk about historical topic or tradition, and new arrivals in town doing similar things. It's just a way to bring the cultural arts part of things into more of the life of the town. So that to me seems like something the Planning Commission could lead, some kind of asset study for use in for the town, thinking about what it is and what it wants to preserve.
I think it's a predecessor to any kind of survey, right? We need to know what and be able to communicate what we have and what we want to protect, what we want to encourage, and then ask questions related to that. I think if we just went out and asked blank questions, we get some good feedback, and we get a lot of
I think
ice cream
open-ended
shops and coffee shops and stuff that we know people would love to have, around the corner, but yeah. So I think we need to contextualize anything that we ask with what our stated goals are, which means we have to have our stated goals first, which means we need to find a cultural asset inventory would be a very good place to start. Or one of the things to start with, right? And we could also start. I think we could think about. After we stated some things that I think we agreed on. I just want to state them, right? We want to protect the historical ambiance, for lack of a better word, and existing structures and uses, the historical structures and historical uses in that area. I think you may have said that, but I think we all agree on a walkable town center. Something else we've been adamant about trying to establish. And the vision, right? You brought that vision up, and that is the town vision statement is very powerful and is very leading. And Kevin brought it back up again. I think we need to think about all of this in terms of applying that vision statement to how we want to, what will we end up doing? Like, how does that drive our goals? And then, of course, we said we wanted to have a positive effect on the local economy, not a negative one. And then we have the questions of how does the residential fit in? How do we look to stimulate versus just restrain?
Yeah.
And all of that, I think, a basis for that is knowing what we have and knowing what it means to protect. What are we trying to protect, and what does that really mean? So, I think Kevin brought up a very good starting point.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yes.
So, Martin, the only thing I worry about is if you were to ask the people in town, minus the cat people, their input is gonna be obviously totally different because they're not owners in there, and how realistic what they want. They put a Chick-fil-A right there. They would destroy every business in town. It's not
Right.
realistic. So you have to really think, that's a slippery slope on what they think will come. And I'm just worried that if it gets too extreme, it's like you could put a nail in the coffin of the downtown because you're only gonna allow this stuff that will never come.
Yeah.
So.
No, I
it's a
don't.
really tough question.
I don't envision like asking people, what would you like to see come in terms of
Okay.
businesses? I think you're right. That is, and I think your answers would be all over the place, like, Trader Joe's probably ad nauseum, which I would,
Right.
which I would love to see, but like,
Yeah.
but,
I mean, you gotta be very careful on how that's done and also be respectful of the people that own the property.
of course. Yep.
One other quick thing. I did a unprompted survey,
Mhm.
and I went down to Kentlands.
Mm-hmm.
And every community, whether it's the Kentlands or Potomac, I counted. Go down there one day, next time you guys go to Potomac, and count food establishment, food establishment, food establishment. Everyone in this town has to eat every day. So there's a high level of that. Now, we don't have a grocery store, that'd be great to have. The second thing they have in towns are service oriented. Hair salons, there's so many nail salons, beauty salons in town. So there's so much this town can absorb. We gotta take this all in context. If there were 3 more restaurants in this town, without more people, more likely 2 would go out of business. It's hard to say. So we have to be very, very finite on how we balance that. So, you know what I mean? The retail is alive and well in town. It's with a brown truck that drives around every day, as you guys all know. But go down there one day and you'll be shocked on what really exists in commerce in these small towns. It's just food.
Yeah.
And then there's necessary retail, like the hardware,
Yeah.
liquor stores,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it's a balancing act. We have a hardware, we have this, we have food, and we gotta balance it.
I like how you call liquor stores necessary.
They are. It actually is.
That's debatable, but.
That's right.
I,
It's really true.
I do want to make a clarification that that we are not endorsing anything necessarily that, like, we're not saying we want this. We're just saying that it could be allowed. Like, whether a grocery store or a restaurant or 10 restaurants come is not us to decide, oh, we only want 3. Like, it doesn't work like that. So I want to make sure that we're very clear that this is not an endorsement of a certain land use. This is not an endorsement of a certain, aspect. Like, we're just trying to make sure to both protect and create opportunities. And what that looks like, I can't say. I mean, I don't have. But yeah, I get that tends to be what you see, but that doesn't mean that that's what we're trying to accomplish. And I think that language matters, because the way it was presented just now, it sounded like you felt like that was what we were trying to accomplish. And that's not necessarily true.
It's just the reality in towns. They can only absorb so much X, Y, and Z. And if you want mixed-use development, how many more restaurants can absorb? How many more of these can absorb? It's a
Nail
tough
salons, or
balance.
yeah.
As everyone knows.
And
Well-
that comes back to the form-based zoning,
Right,
right?
and
Exactly.
just because we allow mixed use, just because we might or might not write in something that says, mixed use development is encouraged, whatever. We tried to get mixed use development over here, and there was not a single developer that wanted anything to do with it. So so we let it go. So there's no appetite for it, so you let it go. But it's simply saying hey, if you want to do it or whatever, but there's not going to be any financial incentive or
Right.
nothing can go in here except mixed use development. I mean, that's not anything that we're trying to do. And I personally would like to not encourage any specific type of business, but maybe try to keep some stuff out that like you're saying, a Chick-fil-A on the corner would probably devastate. I would rather not see something like that. you know, like a big box store that's gonna like hurt John's Hardware or like, you know, the stuff that's already here, so.
Really, our strength is to be able to restrict it.
Hmm?
It's really our strength and our power to be able
Yeah.
to restrict it. We just have to be
Yep.
careful about how we do it.
Yeah. All right. Thoughts, comments?
Good place to stop, right?
I think we have our marching orders for,
So just the last thing, so for the next meeting, do we want to kind of present sort of, this is one that we're sort of starting over, for lack of a better word, or trying to build a new foundation?
new iteration for sure.
Yeah, for what we want this to be, because I want to communicate this out, basically, to everybody in the CAD and everywhere else that, you know, come with your ideas is kind of the approach now.
Can we change?
Not directly in that meeting, but like, you know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
it's a change, but it's not, you know, so that people don't get the idea that we're still kind of continuing with the same language necessarily. Sort of building block from there.
I know it seems very incidental, but let's not say the people in the CAD. There is no CAD.
Yeah, no, right.
So let's try and
Right.
find some of the language to use, something about the targeted
That
area.
again.
But what
I
more mean is,
It's important in in communication, right? I understand what you're saying, and I'm not trying to dissuade what you're saying
Yes.
as opposed to how you're saying it.
yes,
And I think it's for all of us to take in that when we say that it's the CAD or something, there is an inherent reception when it's said that that's what we're trying to do.
right.
Or that it's a-
Whereas what
It's a done deal.
Or that it's a done deal, and it is
Whereas-
not a done
whereas
deal.
That's sort of what I'm saying. What I want to communicate next time to the public is that is not, that there's a different approach, and that therefore, you know, this is what the Planning Commission is trying to do with that approach.
Yep.
Because what I want to communicate out is not everybody who's seen this, you will have seen this meeting, hopefully, you know, people will, especially, you know, the second half, and know that this is the approach. But I also want to communicate that out so that people don't come in the future and say, well, what are you doing about this when you've made a decision, in a sense, and that you want to build that up. So that's one thing that I wanted to take out.
Well, I do think as we get further along in this process, that we need to like specifically notify everyone that lives in that district, like, you know,
That's what I mean.
here's where we're at, like, you know, this is what
That's
we're doing.
that's what I figured
Yeah.
I would do before the next meeting. Is
Yeah.
specifically say, this is what we want to do.
I think we're going to step back and evaluate
Yeah.
Yeah.
how we can best protect the historical ambiance of the existing structures and existing uses in the downtown area.
Yeah,
Yep.
And part of that's going to be considering what our assets are.
right.
What are we trying to protect?
Perfect. And I think that is the summation that will go into the notice. And that's perfect. And I just wanted to make that clear that that's what we were saying.
That
It's funny-
comment
it's
was
funny that
made
we-
at 8:45,
Yep.
so you can go back.
And then secondly, what specifically do you want at the next meeting? Do you want like an overall breakdown of here's what is technical?
I think we probably need a little bit of time to decide, and I think we can do it over
Sure.
email in the next
That's
couple
fine.
of weeks.
We'll have plenty of time to discuss that.
Yeah.
Should we agree that maybe we should all bring in what we think the priorities should be, like walkability, you know, aesthetics, like, you know, like a list of those, like start over there? And then how soon can you get like resident feedback, do you think?
Well, so that goes to what Brian was saying. Do we want to contextualize what we are asking them for feedback for?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that might.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that might take more time than we say doing a feedback form,
Right.
you know, in between now and the next meeting in the next month, rather than set it up so that we can get that feedback based on what your priorities are.
Yep.
I can do either. I'm just trying to say what you guys
I
want.
think that it's better to give some structure in which the
Yes.
feedback can,
I agree.
so that we
Yep.
think some more
Mm-hmm.
about where, you know, I think we've got a lot of feedback already that,
Yeah.
and that we can respond to in a structured way that then they can
Yep.
respond to.
I make a motion we adjourn.
Got a motion from Martin. I have a second.
I'll second.
Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Time is 8:46.
Yep. Yeah, good discussion, guys.